This is Chairman Jack. Today we're doing another What Is video today on what is social democracy, and I'm accompanied by
Maine.
And I'm Ormica.
And so to start it off, like we do in all of these videos, we're going to start off with the definition, and I'm going to hand it off to Ormica for that.
Okay. Social democracy is a political and social system that supports economic and social interventions by the government in order to promote social justice within a liberal, democratic, and capitalist framework.
Yeah, and to quickly expand on that, like what that basically means is welfare programs, like whether it mean pensions at the behest of the government, healthcare, free college or subsidized college, work protections, all these public welfare schemes, but under a liberal democratic, meaning a dictatorship of the bourgeoisie or rule by the rich, and under capitalism, more or less, just that it is within a capitalist framework, that capital is in control, not the workers, yet they give you all of these welfare programs.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry. Continue.
No. And it's important that we understand that even though all these things are really, really nice, they don't actually fix any of those contradictions of capitalism. They just mitigate them.
Yeah, exactly. All it is harm mitigation. But what does harm mitigation mean when austerity is just around the corner? We saw this all across Europe after the recession of austerity basically ripping out the backs of all these social democratic programs, whether it be the Blairite reforms in the UK, whether it be the recent nationalization of the rail in Norway, whether it be the rise of Macron in France, and the entire mass austerity campaign he's done, austerity under Reagan, austerity under Trudeau or Stephen Harper in Canada. I can go on and on and on all around the world about austerity, as we've done and have a whole mini-series on, so check that out. But yeah, there's no protection. There's no brick wall that says you can't hit that down. It's always going to be around the corner because it's controlled by capital.
Right, that is the most important thing, is how tenuous the situation is. I mean, we could point out that, and we will point out next month, that a lot of the social democracy reforms can only happen after imperialism and all the horrible things that it does. and then once imperialism starts to crumble, suddenly social democracy is way too much. That's way too far left. Because the capitalist countries just cannot handle it.
Yeah.
Without
or
that.
Even when social democrats, after the AOC, perfect example, right? AOC refused to comment on Maduro and was one of the constant clapped for Juan Guaido, and constantly stepped back everything she was saying from a social democratic platform all the way as she's reproaching to a more centrist platform, at least centrist in the terms of the Democratic Party. But yeah, so even she is stepping away after the fact of saying, oh, well, I'm a social democrat, but blah, 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 blah. Here's why I support U.S. intervention around the world. And we'll get into that more next month when we talk about social chauvinism.
Mm-hmm. Right, well, and I think that there's a large appeal. The whole point is to create a situation where, okay, the workers are about to rise up. Let's hand them a little, here are a handful of benefits. Here's your social safety network. The contradictions are mitigated. And in return, we don't do revolution. We don't get the actual demands we want. We get this little placator right there, and that's completely acceptable by capitalism.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Bismarck did. That's like when he's entirely split when it was still called, when there wasn't a term socialist or communist yet, and they were all just called social democrats. He split the movement in half. he split them entirely down the middle on if you supported Bismarck's healthcare reforms. Like the entire modern German healthcare state came about because Bismarck took those reforms from radicals and then split the movement. The FDR did the same thing with the New Deal. He entirely split CPUSA down the middle on if you supported him and you were in the Browder faction or you were in Foster's faction. Like those were, that was the split. And that's just how social democracy is really designed to be. And it's just like, it's not needed anymore. There isn't a big enough communist movement that's a genuine threat to any major country anymore that they need social democracy. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, there's no major, movement that they have to be afraid of, that they have to be, all right, here's some reforms. It's just ripped out and gone. And now we're just left with austerity. And no matter how hard we want to try to bring back some glory day of social democracy, it just doesn't exist anymore. And there's no more space for it because it's simply like Bernie Sanders, perfect example. He got ripped down, propagandized, and destroyed against. Jeremy Corbyn, same thing, because of they asked for basic common sense social democratic reforms and they were destroyed for it. But I think just at the end of the day, really my final comments on it is just social democracy it sounds like a really good step into things, and I'm not going to go after anyone for being a social democrat, as I and many other communists today are or were social democrats. But what social democracy is at the end of the day is just either a stepping stone or B, just nearly an idealist point that you're acting like we can just have social democracy and that's the end. We can just have it. But then nothing stops another Reagan from tearing everything down.
Right. And I think that's the big thing is that it acts as like a false class consciousness. You can be a social democrat, and that would be my final word on it, that it's 100% a false appeal to actual leftist thought.
Yeah, so in closing, I would basically just say, once again, the definition is that it is a political, and social democracy is a political and social system that supports economic and social interventions by the government in order to promote social justice within a liberal, democratic, and capitalist framework. Just simply meaning, capitalism is the main reason why social democracy exists and will continue to exist or doesn't. No matter whatever situation arises, it'll either be used by a tool as of the bourgeoisie or simply just toss it out there in order to calm people down. Like when people got too angry about never having healthcare, we got Obamacare, but that was only a simple step. It wasn't a grand universal healthcare plan. And say what we will about that and how Republicans try to stop it, whatever, isn't the point. It's just these little tacit things are only given out when the people absolutely demand it and they're verging on the step of class consciousness. See our video on false consciousness about that. But either way, besides the point, I thank everyone for listening. I have been Chairman Jack.
And it's been Ormica.